right, ladies and gentlemen, our resident, our favorite nerd is back at it again, Void Enigma, with another video on the gacha space. It's gonna be focused on a very, very big issue that we've been seeing pretty much in every single big gacha game, and the topic is going to be power creep. Heading on into this, I personally have the opinion that Wuthering Waves has had the best control of like balancing and power creep of its limited roster out of almost like, it's probably the best out of any gacha game I've ever seen before, in the fact that all these 1.0 units, your Gions, your Yinlins, your 1.1 units, they're all still completely playable when we're approaching a year into the game's release. You look at other games like your ZZZs who power crept everybody within 6 months. You look at your 5 months actually. You look at your other games like Honkai Star Rail that destroyed the game on the anniversary with the release of Acheron. And of course, Genshin Impact, where you have games like or you have characters like Klee, who might as well just not exist with how dog shit they are. I'm excited to see where this video is gonna go, what sort of glue we're gonna be introducing to the conversation.
With every ongoing gacha game, the most important thing is the upcoming characters. With that being said,
take a shot every time he shows boobs or ass in the video. I don't feel like dying today.
There are many moral questions that come into play when discussing those new characters. How frequent the new characters are introduced, how often these same characters are rerun, how long these characters will be useful for, and lastly, and arguably the most importantly, how sexy they are. I mean,
I think he raised, until that last part, I think he raised a really good point of how long they're usable for. You look at a game like Honkai Star Rail, right? And their decision to move several characters over to like the 50-50 lost pool, your Blades, your Fu Xuans, and somebody else, I think it's Sela. And when you see a game doing that, that's not a game being nice. That's not a game being like super generous. That's not a game that's like throwing the players a bone. That's a game that has mismanaged their power creep so terribly fucking badly that the older units on their roster simply do not sell on rerun banners anymore. And that just means, okay, well, we can't waste a slot on a character that doesn't sell when we could be putting somebody broken instead on it. And so let's just put them all in the 50-50 loss pool. And it's just a business decision by these devs, or business decisions by the higher up, because they have mismanaged. They have destroyed the balance of the game. That's all it is. It is not the devs throwing the player a bone. It's them maximizing their profits. And people need to realize that. And that's just another negative impact, right, of power creep.
As more and more characters come out, it is thought that power creep is inevitable. But Wuthering Waves is proving that you can continue to make amazing characters and keep their power in budget.
So many people came in with this super just cringe ass argument that Wuthering Waves is a gacha game. Just wait for power creep. It's gonna happen. Because it's gacha, power creep is gonna happen. Just wait. They said that in version 2.0, and they're still saying that now several months later, and the game has only gotten more accessible. All they've done is buff older characters, and they're all saying this after the game introduced something like this. Example A, Exhibit A over here. The mere introduction of Nightmare Echoes, a mechanic that essentially buffed every older unit on the roster with an echo skill that came with passive bonuses to different damage types. All this did was make the 1.0 character stronger. All this did was rebalance the game, raise the power level of every single character, and essentially allow them to have a more even playing field with the newer releases. That is all Kuro Games did when it came to the older characters. And guess what? It worked out well. They're all much more viable. They all feel much better to play. And the end result is that you can see firsthand these devs know how to increase the longevity of their roster. These devs actually know how to balance their game, unlike other devs. And they're not in it. Like, Kuro didn't make any money off of these, but they will be able to make money off of them in the future by making the old units still pullable. Even after their banners have gone, even after a year has gone by, there's still value in pulling those older units. And so this is like a business decision, right? That's not really, that you can view as like greedy, but it's greedy in the best way possible by giving value to the players as opposed to diminishing the value of every older unit on the roster by just releasing new, completely broken ones instead. And it's a different way of approaching the game. It's a way different way of approaching the game in balance, but it shows what these devs are actually doing and how different they are compared to other gacha devs.
My name is Void Enigma, and I'll be discussing why Wuthering Waves' new character consistency and character balancing is superior when compared to other gacha games in the same genre.
I think everybody should realize, I think everyone knows this right off the bat. If you're somebody that like plays Wuthering Waves and you disagree with this, I genuinely have no idea like what you could be thinking right now. Because boy, oh boy, just like seeing the game firsthand, where it's gone from release to where it is right now, every unit still feels pretty damn good.
Be sure to subscribe and like the video as always, and let's hop right into the void. When a new character gets introduced in any gacha game, they are given a power budget. Most games will keep that same power budget, but only for a certain amount of time. A game that just wants your money will simply keep on releasing more and more powerful characters and force you to get those new characters. For instance, as much as I love One Piece Treasure Cruise is a game where the most powerful character this month is completely useless next month because of power creep.
And that's how they get you to keep pulling, right? That's how they get you to keep pulling on the newest character. Though this is probably not the example I'd have used.
And don't quote me on this, but I think also Dragon Ball Dokkan is kind of the same. Now the reason for this is simple. Once you have an established roster, the only way for players to pull for new characters is if they're stronger and better. The only way for the gameplay to be more engaging is, of course, if you use Gear 3rd and inflate the HP values to an insane degree to keep up with the power creep. That's the only way. Right? Now, earlier I said that power creep was inevitable, but it's been...
Maybe that's the only way in turn-based games. It would explain a lot about whatever the fuck happened to Honkai Star Rail, for sure.
1 year with Wuthering Waves, and a character like Jian, who was the first event character released in the game, is just as powerful as he was day one as he is now.
There's a correction to that, Void Enigma. He's not as powerful as he was on day one. He's stronger. He's literally stronger than he was on day one. So that's actually misinformation. He's better now than he was before. He's better now than he was on release.
Jinchi's played
that's not a bad thing to be wrong about.
It's in the meta as the strongest has not been overturned by a similar character, but instead we have characters like Carlotta, who was only considered a better version because of the mechanics of her kit, not the actual power of her blows. I want you to imagine at the beginning of the gear that there is a tier 0 character that is an amazing ice goddess who reminds you of 2B. She is hailed as the absolute strongest.
Don't do it. Don't get into it. Don't go into a history lesson on fucking Jing Liu, please. Nobody. This story is so sad. This has to be one of the saddest stories in gacha gaming. And the thing is, this sad story, it's not even about like what happened in the lore. It's about what happened to the usability of this character and every DPS released across version 1 of Honkai Star Rail. Holy shit. I don't even understand what in these devs' head, like what was going on in these devs' mind when they just like unilaterally decided, you know what? We're gonna make our entire past year of DPS releases completely fucking useless. Just like, why? Why do that?
And in a matter of 2 to 3 updates, that same character is pathetically weak and unusable.
She wasn't even viable for a year. She wasn't even viable for a year. That's how fast it was.
This is the reality of a character in Honkai Star Rail. The aggressive power creep in Honkai Star Rail should be studied because it is insane how
it will be.
Fast some of these characters fell off. Even the infamous Genshin Impact, while power creep definitely exists, it isn't as outrageous. One thing that I can say about Genshin Impact is, you can't power creep the carry. You can only power creep the support. Actually, never mind, Mabuika exists.
Genshin basically had power creep in like two waves. The first wave of Genshin's power creep was back in, I think, version like 1, around version 1, with the release of, I believe, Ganyu and then Hu Tao, kind of like going forward from there. That raised the damage ceiling in the game pretty significantly, those two characters. And then following their release, the game was pretty much like, the power budget was pretty much uniform across the rest of the roster, probably up until Natlan. And then in Natlan, they released Mavuika and then just like fucked it up again. So it's like Mavuika raised the damage ceiling absurdly high if you pull all the other Natlan characters that work with her. It's ridiculous how much she does. It's like it's close to like 1.5x, maybe even higher than the other teams in the game. That's the thing. They're doing all of this predatory stuff with like the power budgeting in the game while they're actively destroying Honkai Star Rail and ZZZ at the same time. All three of the games basically got a massive amount of power creep from the end of 2024, December 2024, up until like basically like January or February of 2025. All three of the games experienced a massive amount of power creep.
Isn't she and Sit Lolly like the undeniable best duo in the game now?
Yes.
Now, let's return
Put in Shalon in 2 and then, yeah.
to the land of Solaris 3, and let's glance at Pridwin's tier list, because it's actually pretty accurate. Consistently from version 2.0, we have had mid-character after mid-character after mid-character. Rochia, Phoebe, Brant, Cantarella, they're all mid. But that's actually an amazing thing, because mid is considered suitable.
I don't know if you could use the word mid to describe some of them. That maybe is a bit of an under-exaggeration. They're strong, for sure, but they're not stronger than the prior releases.
They don't have to have crazy insane power. They don't have to have crazy insane gimmicks. They are properly balanced for the current state of the game.
He might get into this later, but I think one just very, very intelligent thing that Kuro Games has done to balance the power budgets in the game is very simple. The best boost to your damage that anybody can have is a sub DPS. And I've actually got 3 of them on my team right now. The biggest damage boost you can get for a team isn't really your echoes. It's something called an outro skill, where damage basically gets amplified for certain damage types. Like you're seeing Brant's over here, fusion damage by 20% and resonant skill damage by 25% for 45% total if you use both these damage types. That is one of the basically the biggest boosts you can have in the game, like a raw 45% multiplier on your outgoing damage of this type. And when you don't have one of these active on your character, your damage loss or your damage potential is much lower than it is if you do have it. What these devs have done is essentially make all of these buffs pretty much the same across every unit. The only stipulation is that Chainlee's is like shorter for some reason. You're seeing 20% over here, 25% over here, and then on Rosia, right? The same exact numbers, 20 and then 25. And so by doing this, by basically putting in this sort of like hard limit on how much a character can buff, you don't end up in like stupid situations like Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact, where a sub DPS just comes in and then blows everybody else out of the water because their buffs are just like 30 million times better than other units. It's great to see devs that are willing to like draw a line in the sand that players will easily know is crossed in the future. If a new sub DPS comes in and they have like 30% and like 35, players will probably be like, this is way too high. Like you need to nerf this now in the beta and like rebalance this, because they've already set a standard across every sub DPS that's in the game. And what that means is just it's all about the different damage types. It's all about different ways to play the characters, different movesets, versus just dealing more damage than everybody else. And again, this outro system, the concerto system, all of that is the primary reason why. And the other great part about having this damage split is that you can use this unit with other units, right? The buff might be smaller, it might not be as significant, but it still gives them a little spread in where they can be used, not at their full potential, but still usable in other lineups. And that just gives you more team building options in the future, which is great stuff.
Now, I talked about a character's power budget in the beginning, and then I went off on a little tangent, so let's return to that. Rather than increasing the power budget per character, Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games does something phenomenal.
What is
They
it?
give each character the same power budget. Instead of making the new premium character have 110% power than the rest of the cast, they actually just simply cap them at a max of 100%. This means that each new character, no matter how loved they are by the cast and by the players, they will always have the same balance of power. Hence, why I call the other characters mid, because if everyone is around the same power, then that makes the mid the norm.
You know what? Okay, I can see what he's talking about over here from his definitions, because he's saying every character is an average level of power. And so by that definition, if every character has like the same average level of power, then everybody is mid, because mid does mean average, in the middle. and everybody's average. At least that's the argument that I'm seeing over here. That's just factually wrong. All the characters at their max potential are pretty close to each other. What you can also say though is that Cantarella is not able to reach her max potential at the moment. But I'm pretty sure when she gets a Havoc Resonant Skill damage dealer, she'll be pretty much at the same exact level as every other sub DPS, if not slightly a little bit higher. Carlotta no diffs every DPS in the game, and it's not even close. I feel like it's pretty close. She might have like 1 or 2 or 3, 4 or 5% more damage. I don't think it's a significant amount. What I will say Carlotta succeeds in is having the easiest fucking playstyle in the game. And this is the thing, right? It's very easy to guarantee all of Carlotta's damage. I would say it's easier for other DPSs to like miss damage in their rotation because they might like miss attacks, the enemy might like move, all of that stuff. I feel like Carlotta is probably one of the only characters in the game that can basically guarantee like all of her hits. So I would say it's like playstyle power creep, in that she's probably the most brain dead, easy to use unit on the roster. And that's probably a meaningful part about what goes into like her performance, right? Because all of her hits will land. And I don't think there's any situation where you like miss anything. I don't think anything can even be canceled. If we're being entirely honest here, her Forte enhanced heavy attack should probably have not had iframes. Her Forte enhanced heavy attack should probably have not had iframes. When you think about every other character that just gets interrupted while casting theirs. So I do think that is probably a balancing lever that they should have gone for, but I think that's it.
That doesn't come without a myriad of problems though, and that's the fact that Wuthering Waves is releasing way too many characters and they're all high quality. Let's take for example
what a terrible problem to have.
Game like Limbus Company, where power creep is definitely present. Even though there are still some Season 1 IDs who have insane power, Warp Dawn for instance, the newer characters are just much more enjoyable to use and they have much better payoffs. And sometimes they do fall flat, but nonetheless, the new characters are much more desired. With that being said, Limbus Company has a shard system, so while you can't pull for every character, you can at least grind for every character that you want in the game, so getting every new character isn't quite as difficult.
Damn, this guy's a Limbus enjoyer. Holy shit. Bro has like fucking 14,000 pull currency.
But Wuthering Waves, starting from version 1.0, has released on average 1.6 new characters per update. Most of the time we get 2, and every now and then we get 1.
True.
Each of these new characters are unique, different, and they're all quite loved. This is actually an insane rate to release new characters, and it's a mystery how the hell Kuro does it and keeps their balance in check.
I feel like a lot of people don't seem to factor into the equation that every single Wuthering Waves character has such a unique moveset when it comes to like their attacks, like, you know, like their heavies. We're just gonna compare it to Genshin Impact real quick. We all know how Genshin Impact works. Like, the models are all entirely the same. The attack animations are like 75% recycled, and like every character is coming in with like their own like, you know, their own like thing going on, like their own like air attacks. It's just like everything is just completely unique. And you think about like the development cycle, you think about like the timeline that these devs had to put in. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, there's a reason why this game doesn't have 2 characters every update. It's because they put a lot of work into the fucking units. And you know what? They probably put a lot of work into balancing and testing them so that they don't have any power creep issues like other fucking games.
The luxury of this rapid release of characters is, of course, that the game is new, and Kuro Games is actually still establishing its roster. They can't power creep the characters, but instead, they can power creep the teams. For instance, sure, Carlotta may be superior to Jinshi thanks to her time stop and a few other mechanics and the fact that she has access to Judgy, who buffs her into insane heights. But it goes without saying that Jinshi will still hit harder in that one burst of damage, especially if she gets a Spectro-coordinated attacker who also buffs Resident Skill damage.
Actually, Void Enigma? Jinxi's best in slot would have to be a different element than Spectro, or different attribute than Spectro because of how her Forte works. Come on, buddy boy. Jinxi's best in slot is an off-element coordinated attacker that buffs Resident Skill by like 38%. Come on, dude.
That would turn Jinshi into the ultimate weapon of damage, while Carlotta would actually have a better time when you're faced against a difficult boss by utilizing her time freeze. Because of that fact, Kuro Games has implemented a special way of really working things out. Team building power creep. As of right now, Gion is great, right? He's still great, always has been great.
True.
But his whole entire team would get an insane buff if there's a character that comes out that buffs heavy attack and arrow damage and also gives some energy to Gion and other perks maybe.
Think about it this way. Carlotta is 100% at the top of the meta because she has Jeja to work alongside. That is one of the big reasons why Carlotta is so high on top, because Jeja basically gives her everything she needs. I think what a lot of people don't recognize is that Jeja is just so good for Carlotta, it's a little bit disgusting. Exhibit A. After outro skill is cast, restore 15 resonance energy for the incoming resonator. Exhibit B. The incoming resonator has their glacial damage amplified by 20% and resonance skill by 25. If Jeja did no damage in her kit and just had those two passives, she would still be Carlotta's best in slot, because this is one of the most liberation reliant characters in the game. If you don't have this character's resonance liberation up, she's not a unit. She's basically just not a unit at all. And having this sort of usability or synergy with a character like this is like a huge component of her power level. And when we have so many characters, so many specifically DPS characters that don't have their best in slots yet, well, I mean, when they don't have their best in slots yet that buff her as much as she's buffed by Jeja, then it does make sense why Carlotta is kind of at the top. There's really nobody else that has this much synergy with the buffer. Zhang Liao is sort of there, but the thing with Zhang Liao is that, I'm gonna be real, I think bro has a little bit more utility than Carlotta does and trades a fair amount of it for damage. And he doesn't have any of the swap restrictions that Carlotta does in her kit. So he's a little bit more versatile, but does a little bit less damage. But that's his versatility on Zhang Liao is part of his power budget. He does have a best in slot support though in Yinlin.
That would instantly make Gion's team significantly stronger.
My dream sub DPS for Gian is an arrow heavy attack buffer that also increases attack speed and also grants ER. Maybe they don't even have like a lot of off-field damage. They have almost no off-field damage at all, but they just like buff attack speed or something like that. That would probably be one of the most interesting things in the game that they could think about adding, but who knows? Maybe they'll just leave Gian like in like the fucking cuck chair for the rest of time. We'll just have to see.
The same can be said for every character in the cast. As of right now, at this moment, we have Arrow Rover, whom hasn't even been given a team yet, and we have Phoebe, who still has a complete lacking team with
Yes, the free-to-play Spectral Rover.
Spectral Frazzle. I wonder if the two new drips have fixed that issue. There used to be a time where I would love the fact that I didn't need every single character as the patches rolled about. Like, take for instance, Fontaine against Impact. We had Risley, Nuvalette, Farina, Cloran, Navia, Linny, and of course Arlecchino. And of those characters, I wanted Risley, Farina, Cloran, and of course, I really lusted for Arlecchino. Now, I didn't actually end up getting Risley, but I did manage to get the other ones. But now with Renacida and Wuthering Waves, of all the characters that are released, Carlotta, Rochia, Phoebe, Brant, Cantarella, Zani, Chacona, like, I literally want every single one of them. I had to force myself to skip Cantarella just because I had to get Zani and Chacona next patch.
I think this is one of the big things about WuWa. People aren't motivated to like pull characters in WuWa just because they're like strictly stronger than other ones. People are motivated in WuWa to like pull characters because of like all of the new things they'll be able to do with their team building, all of the new things they'll be able to do with like their lineups, all the different ways that they're going to be able to experiment with new team comps. Because again, it's not like pulling like Carlotta and Jeja is going to be the difference between you clearing and you not if you already had teams built, right? It's not like pulling these new characters is going to like allow you to clear previously unclearable content. It's simply so that you have like a different way of playing the game, a different way of like dealing damage, and it's not like you're going in and then just being like 30 times better than others. Your teams will definitely be stronger if you have like the synergies built in, but that's just a part of like a team fucking based game. And the thing is, when we know that every character has like a ceiling, we've seen what the ceiling is for units like Carlotta, which have, you know, basically their full best in slots. It's really just turning into like variety of gameplay. And especially when the difficulty of all of the endgame mode, your virtual crises, your Wuthering Waves, your TOAs aren't centered around you needing the new units to succeed. Well, I mean, it's just really all about fun and aesthetics and how things look instead of how big the numbers are. You don't end up in situations like HSR where, well, fuck it, I'll just show you guys this godforsaken fucking unit where you feel the need to pull this shit, this disgusting unit that nobody actually wanted. Nobody wanted to pull this fucking piece of shit, but they just felt like they had to play the game. People felt pressured just to pull this character because she's like the best unit in the game. And if you don't have her, suddenly a lot of content in the game will not be clearable. And a lot of people, they like doing the end game. They like the weekly or the bi-weekly or monthly reset for these game modes and just getting to like try out the characters, right? Use the characters that they've been grinding for the entire lifetime of the game. People want to use the units that they've been spending wave plates on, that they've been building echoes for, that they've been raising skill levels for. Shocking, I know. People actually want to use their units sometimes. When it's at the point where you need the new units, no matter, and you're pulling them just for their power budget, not for their aesthetics, not for their gameplay, just how big their numbers are, the game just starts feeling worse and worse and worse and worse. And this character is the worst example of it, because nobody fucking wanted to actually use her. They felt like they were forced to. Disgusting.
And probably Phoebe in the future, just because of how squishy her face is, even though I didn't get her the first time.
Bum. No peeb?
If each new character has the same power budget, will that make pulling the new characters unneeded? Well, I think Wuthering Waves has proven that it doesn't need power creep to make the players continue to pull on banners.
Oh, absolutely. You don't need to pull any... There's almost like no units in the game you actually need to pull other than this unit. The only reason why you pull this unit is for like basically quality of life in team building, where she like raises your crit rate and she just feels better to play than Baija, you know, who's a 4-star. So I think it's personally okay that she doesn't feel like the most amazing as a healer. You're basically just pulling Shorekeeper so you don't have to use Baija. That's kind of just like it. And every other unit is pretty optional. Not a must pull. Absolutely not a must pull. The furthest thing from a must pull that's probably in the genre. Absolutely not needed. You don't need her. Nope. No. All you really need is to just pull a couple of DPS characters that like you enjoy playing and that you like, and then you'll go just fine on some of like the general or 4-star buffers. I don't know any unit in the game aside from SK who's just a convenience pull that's a must pull, and I'm not even lying about that. That's just genuinely how I feel.
If they are consistently adding new characters every update with no stop, and every new character is just as good as the last, eventually you as a player will come to a time when your taste align with Kuro Games for a good 2 months, and you'll have to fork over at least the lunar pass to get all the characters that you want, along with your weapons. You have to understand that they do need to make money somehow, and by catering to the dolphins and whales with perfectly designed kits and new characters, that's the winning way to do it. Not power creeping your game to all hell.
And you want to know the best part is when you have games like HSR, you have games like ZZZ, you have games like Genshin, where the fan base will literally start coping. They'll like actually just inhale a full liter of copium and just say shit like, well, the power creep is okay because in lore, the character is so strong. The character's really strong in lore. That's why it's okay that they deal like 30 times the damage of everybody else. It's because in lore, they're stronger. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm glad the lore was the reason why your game is now unplayable. Yeah, I bet every single stupid fucking idiot that was like, huh, well, Acheron is, she's an emanator in the lore, and so it's actually okay for her to deal double the damage of everybody else at S0, S1. And so, yeah, don't worry about it, bro. Look at what that stupid ass reasoning led to in HSR. Look at what that stupid copium dog shit dumbass reasoning that the community forced themselves into and is continuing to do with Miyabi is going to do it, or has done to ZZZ and has done to HSR. Those games, believe me, in like 6 months, or honestly, Honkai Star Rail's already, the ship has already sailed. You're fucking cooked. ZZZ in 6 months? It's not gonna be good. It is not going to be good. You already know what Hoyo's tactics are to sell characters. It's not going to be good.
I had the power to hold myself back and not pull Cantarella. I totally didn't pull 40 times the host of getting an early pity. Why would I do that? I don't even...
Man, this guy would get fucked in Arknight's Enfield. Imagine, right? I'm still going to talk shit about Arknight Enfield's gacha system. Because sometimes, yeah, you just want to throw 30, 40 pulls at a banner that you don't have a guarantee for because you just might get lucky, right? You just might get lucky, and that would be like a great thing. And not having that in your game in 2025 is such a stupid design decision by the Arknight Enfield devs, and the community is bending over backwards still to defend it.
Oh, just wait until you have 120. Oh, you need a strategy to pull on the gacha. You should have a guide on just the gacha part of the game.
Just go, shut up. Just Just make the pity roll over.
We need Cantarella. Maybe I'll do one more. Control yourself, Void. Zania's right around the corner. A full year in, and we're still dodging the power creep bullet. Let's hope that it keeps up. Hit that sub button and drop a like if you enjoyed the video.
Awesome vid by Void Enigma. I think he outlined it really well. I think that we went into game and were able to pull up some great clips as well to, you know, bolster the argument. I would say he missed the mark on like a couple of things, but nothing too major. An overall great vid. I think that people are still going to be in this giga state of copium when it comes to WuWa. They're going to keep spamming, well, it's a gacha game, so it has to have XYZ. It's a gacha, so it's going to have power creep. This is what's going to happen. It's undeniable. It's inevitable. Power creep is basically just Thanos for every game. And the thing is, they'll say this without seeing a shred of actual power creep in the fucking game. They'll see this without actually having an argument to go off of, and they'll continue saying it. And the only thing that we just have to do is point out the tier list, point out the viability of older members of the roster, and keep comparing. Comparisons are how the Wuthering Waves community, how the game as a whole gets through these bullshit accusations, because all you have to do is take one small glance at all these other games in the space, and those arguments completely fall the fuck apart. Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games are genuinely probably the best game devs in the market right now when it comes to actually balancing their game and making all their characters feel good, and most importantly, retain value into the future. Let me know what you all think. Peace.